Hey everybody, Stephen Bogrant here from Pro Physique, and today I'm talking about dangerous show day practices.
My name is Steven, and this is our video about health and fitness things. And I work for Pro Physique, and I am just a guy with a fitness thing for you.
Hey everybody, so wow, not the funnest thing to come back to when I've been off for 2 weeks traveling Europe. I'm going to try and get a little bit of a travel vlog for you guys in a future video, but something very important. And since I was off traveling and I did see some things, of course you see these things in the States as well, but I think it's important to talk about. And so what I want to talk about today is dangerous show day practices and dangerous peak week practices. And I think it's important to talk about because obviously I've talked about it before with Paul on his channel. And if you're interested in watching that video, I'm going to link that in the description box down below. But I think it's one of those things that continually comes up. I've been in this industry for quite a while now, 7 years. It's one of those things where I see less of it, but I still see it. And so I think the biggest culprit that I want to talk about first and foremost, my number one, is your water on show day. This idea that cutting water is somehow going to make you better. And I just think it's this fallacy that has been perpetuated over time that actually ends up making many people look worse. And not only does it make you look worse, it can be very dangerous. And so the number one is water. And let's talk about first and foremost why it doesn't work. Now your body, it has something called homeostasis, and that is this range that it likes to be in. That is where our body functions appropriately. That's where we are safe. That's where we're healthy. That's why when we do blood work and they say, hey, your cholesterol is in a good spot, it's because it's within these ranges that we associate with homeostasis and being healthy. Now, homeostasis for your body's water balance, well, it's about 70-30. So about 2/3 of it is within the cell. That also includes your muscles, okay? The other 1/3 of it is going to be outside of the cell. That includes your spinal fluid, that includes your blood plasma, things like that. Things that are probably very important. So when we understand that much more of our body's water is within the cell than outside of the cell, it now becomes easier to question, well, why would we cut water to dry out? Because isn't that also going to make us look less muscular? The answer is absolutely yes. Oftentimes what will happen is when we cut water, our skin can be almost associated like a sheet, and I love to use the fitted sheet metaphor. If I'm pushing out against a fitted sheet, you see all the details. You see the lines in my nose, you see my eyes, you see all of these different things. You see the details. Well, my skin is similar. But if I'm not pushing out against it as hard, well, guess what? You maybe just see a little bump here. You don't see the lines in my eyes. You don't see the rest of the detail. So oftentimes what happens is we may feel like we're flattening out throughout a show day. Well, of course, we're dehydrating. We're taking water out from the cell because we're having to use it for our body's other processes. So we have more to dehydrate within the cell than without the cell, outside of it. Now, that's also going to create a big problem for getting a pump because, like I just said, part of that body water is in the plasma. That means blood volume. So how are we supposed to get a pump if our blood volume is low? Sodium is part of that as well, and I'll get to that one next. However, if we don't have any blood volume, not only is it going to make it hard for us to get a pump, it also will have some other negative impacts on our health. So let's talk about the water and how that impacts our health and what we see with that. That water going along into that blood volume can create lightheadedness, dizziness, fainting, okay? And that's why sometimes we see people pass out backstage. Now that's a two-part. It could be sodium, could be water, could be a mixture of both of them. Not being enough and not being where we need them to be. But water is important. One of the other things that we can see is with that really low blood volume, heart rate increases. It goes faster. And so that's because essentially your heart has what we call stroke volume. It's how much blood it pumps out with each beat. Now, when our blood volume is down, stroke volume goes down because the heart doesn't fill as much, which means your heart now has to beat much faster to get the same amount of blood out to your body. It might be okay with doing that at rest, but as you start to try and pump up, as you start to stand up and you're stressed out and all these other things happen, your heart rate can continue to increase. Again, this can lead to passing out, dizziness, lightheadedness when you stand up, as you're out and about. Muscle cramping, also from your water and your sodium intake stuff. But it can also, if you're really pushing it to the end of the spectrum, it can and has created cardiac arrest issues for people before. I'm sure most people have heard about this happening backstage where somebody just, or in between shows, they didn't have water, they didn't have sodium, they were trying to peak for the show, and they literally had a heart attack. They had cardiac arrest. And that's because at a certain point, your heart's trying to beat so fast. It's going through the water, it's going through the sodium. And this is where sodium comes into play as well. Sodium is important for all of your muscle function, for your muscles firing and relaxing, okay? Your heart is a muscle. It is a very dense piece of cardiac muscle. So if we are doing the things with sodium and water to where we're depleting them out, well, that's where this danger now becomes a real threat, where we need to be aware of this. This is why it's so important. So not only in terms of your physique and how you look. If you want to look your best, you have to have water and sodium. You can't get a pump without it. Your muscles will not be as full without it. But it should also be a real consideration in terms of our health and what that show means to us. Ooh, and that's scary. I know it is. It's easy to manage though. It's easy to manage if we don't cut water, if we don't cut sodium, if we don't do diuretics. Well, how do we get to that stage of leanness? How do we get to that look without those things? Well, we get leaner. We give ourselves more time to diet. We don't force shows. We listen to the body. We know when to utilize diet breaks and refeeds. We understand the physiology better, and that's how we bring a better look. You do not have to cut water. You do not have to cut sodium to look your best. I've coached the pro stage. I know I've had a second place pro win. I've had fourth place at the pro level this year alone while I was in Europe. She looked amazing. And you wouldn't believe how much water and sodium she had that day. How many carbs she ate that day. If you want to look your best, oftentimes you have to treat yourself like an athlete, and your coach should do so as well. That's difficult because a lot of us have heard different things over the years and may be really entrenched in the idea that we have to do things those old ways. I would challenge you, don't continue to get caught up in that mindset. Not only is it most likely preventing you from bringing your best physique, it is also putting you in danger. If you are cramping up, that is a sign. That is a sign that something is wrong. Nobody gets muscle cramps and is like, oh yes, this is normal, wonderful, I have muscle cramps. Nobody gets up from sitting and gets lightheaded and woozy and says, oh, this is a great feeling. This is how I should feel. No, those are warning signs. Those are signs that our body is telling us that something is off. So, I'm gonna just talk about the water and sodium today because I find those to be the most dangerous things. If you're cutting your water, you're cutting your sodium, you're doing this water loading protocol where you drink a gallon and 2 gallons a day up most of the week and then cut down half it and then half it and then you have no water for the day of the show and the day before the show. And if they're putting you on diuretics on top of that and they're doing these things, start asking questions. demand answers. Demand that they explain how that physiological change is going to keep you safe and make you look your best. Because I can almost guarantee you they can't do it. So everyone out there, please pay attention to your health. Pay attention to what matters most. Make sure you're doing the things to not only stay healthy, but to also look your best. You don't have to do that stuff. Trust me. And if you really don't trust me, go look at Chloe. Talk to you soon, everyone.